I'm Tom Garza. I'm a professor in the Department of Slavic and Eurasian Studies, and I'm also the director of the Texas Language Center. I developed an interest in the study of vampires, the lore, the legends, the myths, when I was still a graduate student and traveled for the first time to the area known as Transylvania in present-day Romania, and found that the actual presence of the place, the ruins of the historical Count Dracula, the region around the Romanian-Hungarian border being rich with this vampire and werewolf folklore really sounded to me like a really perfect hook to try to get students interested in the idea of looking at the history, the religion, the geography, and the traditions of this region that I care so much about. So when I returned to university teaching and came to the University of Texas in 1990, I created a course called the Vampire in Slavic Studies. And that course now has been playing for nearly a quarter of a century. And I'm happy to say that students still seem to find an interest in looking at the vampire myth as a kind of central pivotal point on which they know stories already from contemporary American and European fiction and film, and are able now to tie it in, having looked at the historical texts and literary texts in the course, to tie it into the actual history, looking at real-life vampires like Vlad Dracula from the 14th century, 15th century, or Elizabeth Bathory from the 16th century, and tie those historical figures into the lore that they now see as the consumable products that they read and watch. I personally enjoy teaching the class because it gives so many students at the University of Texas an introduction to a larger sweep of history and religion and geography, as well as culture of the region of Slavic worlds, from the Balkans all the way up to Central Europe and across to Russia. The vampire story is such an enduring and endearing text because it focuses in on the very essence of what we as human beings are so interested in, the question of life and death and what happens when we die. And is there a possibility of life after death? So it gives the 20-year-old undergraduate a chance to think of his or her own life as continuing on and what happens later in life. So I think of looking at the vampire from the perspective not simply as a course that's taught, a subject of study for my own research, but also a tool that undergraduates and anyone might use in ways of looking at defining their own lives.